We're going to call to order the Colerain Township Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for, I don't even know the date today, September 25th, 2019. If we could all rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance first.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Explanation of procedures. All right. For anyone who has not appeared before the Board of Zoning Appeals, or BZA as we like to call it for short, or has never been present for a meeting, we like to provide a brief overview of the agenda for those who are appearing before the board. First, the primary functions of the board are to hear appeals from administrative interpretation of the zoning code, such as the administrative denial of a zoning permit, requests for zoning variances, requests for conditional uses, and requests for expansion or changes to non-conforming uses or buildings. The typical agenda for these meetings go in the following sequence. First, staff will present an overview of each case, which will include photos, diagrams, other materials that are pertinent to the case. And then they will then make a recommendation to this board as to what they think the disposition of the case should be. The chairperson will then open up the hearing to the appellant first to present his or her case. Upon conclusion of their presentation, the floor will be open to those who wish to speak for, and then for those who to speak against. After comments for and against the appeal are made, the chairperson will close the public comment portion of the meeting or the appeal, and then each board member will then address questions to the appellant, staff, and as appropriate to those who spoke in favor or in opposition to the appeal. Once the questions have been answered to the satisfaction of the board, the chairperson will ask for a motion to approve or deny the request. The vote of the board members is the final action of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Just a little housekeeping. For anybody who will be addressing the board today, you must speak from the podium. You must be sworn in first before speaking. When you come to the podium, we ask that you state your name and your address for the record. And just keep in mind that the reason why we ask you to speak from the podium or the lectern is because these proceedings are being recorded. We don't have a stenographer anymore, and so it's important that you speak into the microphone. The nature of BZA is quasi-judicial. We ask that everyone be respectful of every participant, and the chairperson does have the right to excuse anyone who is displaying disruptive behavior from the meeting, from the hearing. And so, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Berthold.
Here.
Mr. Hill. Mr. Roberto.
Here.
Mr. Reinger.
Present.
Ms. Wilson.
Present. We are missing one board member, so we are asking that Mr. Shupp be seated. That being said, will all who plan to speak today rise and you raise your, raise your
Raise your right hand.
raise your right hand. Mike was mouthing something to me. Do
Plan
you?
on speaking at the? Not really. Okay.
Okay. Just keep in mind that if you do, you have to be sworn in first. Do you swear or affirm that everything that you say before this Board of Zoning Appeals will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If you do, say I will. Thank you. Our first appeal is BZA 2019-101. The dollar store sign. I think yes, the Family Dollar, and the issue is a dollar store sign. Location 8425 Colerain Avenue. The applicant or owner, ABC Signs, 8403 Colerain Avenue, LLC. Is the appellant here? If you could take the podium, give us your name and address.
First, you got to do the presentation.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're good.
I missed the meeting. It's been a while.
Just sit down for a second. We'll call you in a moment.
I'm so
Thank you very much.
sorry. Does staff have a presentation?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. So ABC Signs on behalf of Family Dollar, apologize for that. They're located at 84 25 Colerain Avenue. They are requesting a variance for a new wall sign. The subject property is located in the Colerain Hills Shopping Center, which is south of Ronald Reagan and west of Colerain Avenue, so completely opposite of this aerial. So south is that way, and then west is that way. It's part of a shopping complex that was built in the 70s, and the main anchor store there is Walmart. The subject property is zoned B2, and the surrounding neighborhood to the south of it at the top of the screen is zoned R7, which is multi and single family residential. Here's just another aerial of the subject property. You can see that they have a pylon sign out along the Colerain corridor as well. So they'll have 2 signs for this tenant. Here's a picture of the existing sign. This is actually a non-conforming sign right now. The total square footage of this sign is approximately 148 square feet. Here are just some images of the adjacent tenants to give you approximation of the relative signs, and then just another photo of their cabinet sign right there to the right. Just some more pictures of the property, the parking lot facing north. You can see my car right there. Here's a panoramic photo of the entire southern structure in the shopping complex. You can see that the dollar sign is actually the largest sign out of all those tenants right there. Just another aerial. So with this, the total width of the Family Dollar store unit is 75 feet. So the maximum square footage that they could have for a wall sign would be 75 square feet. Here is their proposed Family Dollar sign. The new proposed sign's approximately 121.5 square feet. So it's a little smaller than what is there now. But with that 75% or 75-foot allowance, it's technically over 46.5 square feet. So the variance that the applicant is asking for tonight is for that overage for the 46.5 square feet for the wall sign. Here's just some more technicals of this wall sign. So with that being said, staff finds that the property in question would likely yield a reasonable return without a variance. The property can reasonably be identified with signs meeting current zoning regulations. 2, the sign variance requested is substantial. Technically, it's 60% over what is allowed for signage. 3, the granting of variance would grant a consideration that is not available to other property owners within the neighborhood. 4, the granting of the variance would probably not have a negative impact on the neighboring property. It would create a precedence to allow for sign variances if requested by other neighbors. 5, approval of sign variance would not affect delivery of government services. 6, there are no topographic issues related with this property. And lastly, by taking into consideration the benefit to the applicant, if the variance is granted as weighed against the potential detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood and broader community, staff finds that substantial justice would be done by not granting the variance. So staff recommendation is denial of the variance request. I would be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
I had one. Is the existing sign as large as it is because of a PUD or some other reason?
I could not find that information.
Yeah, well, I searched for, searched for zoning certificate records to see if I could find out anything on the existing sign and could not find actually anything for that address.
Do any of the other board members have questions for staff?
I just got a statement. This is a fairly new store, isn't it? Within the last 10 years? And we don't have any records of the signage for this property?
I could not locate them. We are having a little difficulty with our indexing of our zoning certificates, but I think I did a pretty thorough search, at least for the time period going back 10
Is
years.
it possible that they did this without applying for a variance?
none of us were here, so
Right.
I really can't speak to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board or staff? Okay, now, if you could approach the podium, give us your name and address and make your presentation.
My name is Megan Meyer. I'm with ABC Signs at 2336 Iowa Avenue in Cincinnati. I do have hard copies if you guys would like a copy of them.
You may approach. Oh, okay.
And pull that podium closer to you, just so we can hear everything. Thank you. Thank you.
Let the record show that the applicant is giving us copies of the aerial views, the proposed changes to the sign. Yes, the area view of the area and proposed changes to the existing sign.
So the main reason we're going for the variance is because Family Dollar as a whole is kind of rebranding and changing the style of the sign, as you kind of saw what was proposed. So they like to go with something that is more comparative in size of what is already there. We do understand, obviously, that that does not fall within the criteria of what is required at this time. But we wanted to go ahead and proceed with the variance and see if there was any way that we might be able to get that extra square footage. Because that is a large space to have, well, that's a large area of wall to utilize, and it would really like to be able to have that extra square footage of that sign.
Okay. All right, well, if that concludes your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, have a seat. We may call you back for any questions. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this appeal? Seeing none, is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of the appeal? Seeing none,
I make a motion to close the public portion.
I'll second.
roll call, please.
Mr. Bartold?
Yes.
Mr. Shupp?
Aye.
Mr. Roberto?
Aye.
Mr. Reinger?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye. All right, we can start with Mr. Bartold. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
Well, yes, if you want to come back up. So there's obviously a lot of Family Dollars throughout the country. Obviously, there's there's zoning codes of different types all over the country. So if you're dealing, and I don't know if you know this or not, but if you have to deal with numerous different regulations, you have the ability to make the sign bigger and smaller, or is it a set size based on manufacturing of it?
Manufacturing can be adjusted based on what our client sends in. Our company does not personally manufacture. We do have that done by others. But for this one in particular, the company that hired us is taking care of the manufacturing. But to answer your question, yes, it can be adjusted to be regulation.
Okay. I think that's it for now.
Mr. Shupp, do you have any questions? Oh, you might as well just
Yes.
say just in case.
Yes, I do. I was just down there, and the sign that you have is not unappealing, but your new one is certainly more appealing. Is the panel that you have on the Colerain location going to mirror the same logo? Is that your intention, to replace the panel on the sign at Colerain Avenue?
On the pylon sign
Yes.
by the street, yes. So we actually did already get that one approved through zoning, and we have gone ahead and made that change for them.
Have you had a preliminary drawing of one that would comply with the current zoning, and to see, got an image of what that might look like?
None that I have prepared right now. But I believe I could definitely get something like that and have it sent in.
Well, it's an attractive sign, and that is the gateway to our community for people to come in. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shupp. Mr. Reininger, do you have any questions?
Just one clarification, because I couldn't quite hear the response. On the pylon sign, that sign logo will also change to reflect the new corporate image that you're projecting?
So the panel itself did change, but from what I recall, it does not include that medallion logo on it.
Okay.
It is just the Family Dollar with the different colors and the new lettering.
And the other thing I wish to share is just a comment. The increased size, which exceeds the zoning regulations, my struggle is, once we accept size above what the limitations are, we're in a area where there are no guidelines, and I have yet to hear of an owner that wants anything but a big sign, and the bigger the sign, the better. So I'm kind of confined and constrained by our zoning code, which is not arbitrary and not capricious and has been thought through to some extent, that guides me to not be a supporter of your proposal on that size. If we go above that size, it's going to appear arbitrary or capricious to whoever comes in next. So I appreciate your presentation and the information, but we'll take a vote here shortly and figure out what we're going to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Look, Miss.
Might as well stay there.
Yeah, you might as well stay. We got two more people left. Mr. Roberto.
All right, Jesse, can you take it back to where I think there was a Sally next door in the picture?
Right there. They leave it.
Yeah. Maybe more face on. I kind of want to see the both of them side by side, because Sally, which square footage is significantly less than the Family Dollar, is almost the same size and proportion from height-wise. So I don't know how they got away with it either, because there's no way in the world that is in conforming. So it is in like and kind, it's next to Sally, and it does look the same, but then you get next to the grocery store, and now we've scaled back down. So it's just, I'm struggling. We're not being consistent in what we're enforcing here, and we've allowed a Family Dollar to has a much bigger sign now, and it's neither here nor there. And I'm not cajoling you guys. It's frustrating from a board perspective. We're seeing inconsistencies, and we're trying to support our community at the same time. We want our businesses to succeed. So, if we don't grant this, what's going to happen? Are you going to scale it down, or are you going to keep the existing sign?
We've considered just doing a face replacement on the existing sign. We would prefer to do the newer one, only because it does have the logo and much better appearance, in my opinion. So we've considered a few different options if this does not get approved, but they have not made a full decision as to what they would like to continue with after that.
And the other question I have for the staff, so we're looking at it from a 75-foot length perspective, but the height in this section is actually greater than the rest of the fields. Is that taken into consideration for the sign, or is it only just the length of the building?
It is just the length of the building.
Okay. You see where I'm struggling, because I really think what they've given us is as a suggestion is it's smaller than what they got up there now. It's attractive, and I mean the alternatives, they leave what they got up there, and they got still a bigger sign. So I want to abide by the zoning law, but at the same time I want to give it to them because it's better for the community. All right, that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Roberto. Does anyone else have any questions before I go? Okay. I actually don't really have a question. I'm echoing just the general sentiment. I don't know if it's necessarily consensus, but we are bound by the zoning rules, and we do have to deal with, if we grant this for Family Dollar, whenever any of the other neighbors in the area decide to change their sign, then we're just going to have a mess on our hands. It sounds to me like you're able to go back to the owner and say, hey, can we just scale it down a little bit, or just do a whole refacing versus, changing the entire thing. And so I understand what Mr. Roberto is saying, but I think my what is it called? When you do what your career does, what is it called? I'm having a complete brain freeze today, but basically, I'm just used to sticking to the rules by profession.
Not the letter of the law, but the preciseness of the law.
Yeah, pretty much. They call it something of your occupancy or something, or occupation, or whatever. But I do understand what you're trying to do. I do agree that, it's good for the community, it's good for that area. But I do struggle with granting this in consideration. So my suggestion is just going back to them and talking to them about, hey, let's see if we can come up with another plan and make it just a little bit smaller to scale. So if there are no other questions.
Well, so then is it a viable option to table it and they come back with a smaller option?
Well, if they come back with a smaller option, they're going to meet within their square footage anyway, so it's really a non-issue.
Well, a smaller option that's still over
It might be
75.
over, you're saying if it's over.
Is that something you would consider?
Reducing it compliant or just less than what it is?
Tabling it and reducing it, maybe bring back a couple options, showing that the hardship that's going to cause because it's too small.
I think
Versus-
that's definitely a possibility, absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of what I think we're hoping you would do, because we'd like for you to succeed.
You can do that.
I mean, I'm speaking for the board, but I'm speaking for myself specifically.
Okay,
Well,
can we have a
it's up
motion?
to the
It's up
applicant.
to the applicant, so you would say you'd be willing to table it if we make that recommendation? That means you're going to put it off for another month.
Right. It's hard to say. That's one thing that I did not really put by my client. What happens if we table it and they decide not to do that option? Would we just withdraw, or how would that work?
If you could just reface what you have, you're in
could
compliance.
just withdraw,
Because all you're
yeah.
doing is now making a face change.
Okay. Yeah, we can table it for now, and I'll get back with my client tomorrow, and we'll figure something out, and I'll be in touch.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to table this BZA, BZA 2019-010.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Yeah, just as a note, we would need something back fairly quickly from you to get it back in on the October agenda. Otherwise, we might.
So
have
what
to
time,
kick it.
when do you need it back by? This
She
week?
said she would have something at the end of the week.
Friday would work.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can have something
Just
by end of
email
day
it to me.
Friday.
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Great. Mr. Bartle,
Yes.
Mr. Roberto,
Yes.
Mr. Reinger,
Aye.
Mr. Shupp,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson.
Aye. Thank
Thank you,
you.
good luck to you.
Thanks.
We're ready to move on to our next case, BZA 2019-011, Pleasant Run Elementary School, conditional use, location 11780 Pippin Road. Applicant owner is Mike Parkinson, SHP, with the Northwest Local School District. The staff has a presentation for us.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Excuse me. The applicant, on behalf of Northwest Local School District, is requesting a conditional use for a new parking lot at the subject location at 11780 Pippin Road. Here is an aerial of the subject property. The middle school and elementary school are actually on the same site. The elementary school was just built a few years ago, I believe early 2017. It sits off Pippin Road, which is right there to the west, and then Hamilton Avenue, which is down here in the right corner. The highlighted red circle indicates where approximately the new parking lot is going to go. The property itself is zoned R6, as well as most of the surrounding properties, with the exception of the vacant marsh property up in the northeast corner. This is a conditional use, so it's permitted in an R6 district. Here's an aerial of the property. Google Images is a little behind on their 3D rendering, so where the yellow square is where the elementary school now stands. It gives you a better sense of where the red circle, the new parking lot, is going to go on the property. Here is a drawing of the new proposed parking lot with the completion of the new school a couple years ago, the total parking lots for that elementary school as a whole was 127 parking spaces. So with this new construction, down highlighted in the red circle, they're requesting to add an additional 74 parking spots. So that brings the total parking spots to 201 stalls for the entire elementary school. Per section 13.3.2, this site is technically allowed to have 155 parking stalls with the 10% overage in that section. So they're technically over 46 parking spaces. So the variance they're asking for tonight with this conditional use is for that extra 46 parking spaces. Here is their landscape plan. They just are going to implement some new trees, shrubs, and hedges. Here is the lighting plan. It's kind of hard to see up here, but you can see it better in your packets. Just some pictures of the school. New building. It's absolutely beautiful. So where the fence is behind that is technically where the new parking lot's going to go. I actually had trouble trying to get back there, so I didn't want to hop the fence or anything. So this just gives you a good sense of where it's going to go. So the reasoning for this new parking lot is just to handle the demand for parking, making it easier for the parents and faculty and the buses to maneuver the site. So here's just some pictures approximately where it's going to go. It's going to go on the left-hand side right over here. Staff finds that this use is a conditional use permitted with approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals in the district where the subject lot is located. The use is in accordance with the objectives of the Beavis Pleasant Run character area in the Colerain Township comp plan and zoning resolution. The conditional use will not substantially and/or permanently injure the appropriate use of neighboring properties if approved with reasonable restrictions to mitigate the more intensive use of the property, including noise, outdoor lighting, and parking. Otherwise, the use will serve the public convenience and welfare. And lastly, the use will not create excessive requirements at the public cost for public facilities and services and will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. So with that, staff recommendation is approval of the conditional use and the variance from section 13.3.4A1 to allow for the additional 46 parking stalls over that 10% permit. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do any of the board members have any questions for staff at this time? Okay. Is the applicant present? And if so, if you could take the lectern here and give us your name and address for the record.
Mike Parkinson with SHP, 312 Plum Street, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Did you sign in, Mr. Parkinson?
I think I did because I was the applicant, but I did raise my hand.
You need to sign this
We
stuff.
just need you to sign in here. That's okay.
All right.
You need a pen? It's okay. It's okay.
Happens all the time.
Yes.
He's a rookie.
It's coming from another architect.
I know.
In grief. Can't trust those guys.
You can't trust anybody today.
We're
Lawyers?
worse than lawyers.
Almost.
Jeez Louise. Oh, yeah. Lawyers suck. They do. I don't like most of them. I said that on the
Thank you very much.
As long as I don't talk about judges in the court, I'm good. I won't get in trouble. Okay, Mr. Parkinson, please your name, your address for the record. Thank you.
Mike Parkinson with SHP, 312 Plum Street, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, do you have a presentation?
Other than what the staff has presented, the school's been in operation for a while now. It was determined that additional parking was needed to relieve the congestion that they're finding on site. It's funny but not funny. We thought this was going to be the easiest one because it has such a long drop-off. We look at like Struble, much shorter site. So this one has proven to be the more problem child out of the 3 schools that was recently built here in the city. We are keeping, I do want to point out that southern buffer that's down there along that property will not be touched at all. So, if there's concerns about cars at night with those parking, with the headlights on the car, it will be screened from that as well. We have provided the required landscaping plus the required lighting for safety reasons. And I think it's going to be a great enhancement for the school itself. It'll even on when they have those larger events, it'll help with festivity parking as well. So it's really a need though right now for staff and visitors. So to help relieve that congestion. I know before we provided you this information, we knew we were over the permitted 10%. So we wanted to make sure we had the right number. So if you're going to go in, you got to make sure we had the number. So we've done a great deal of homework with our civil engineer and our client Northwest. We would appreciate obviously support in granting that variance in support of the school district and relieving some of that congestion on the site that is well needed.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. If anybody has any questions, we'll call you back to the... Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, I have a motion.
I'll make the motion to close the public portion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Berthold?
Yes.
Mr. Roberto?
Yes.
Mr. Shep?
Aye.
Mr. Reinger?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye. Right, I guess I can go to the other end. Mr. Reininger, do you have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Reininger?
Mr. Parkinson,
Yes, sir.
as I understand the explanation, it was pretty much to alleviate backups on Pippin Road when school was,
Site congestion, yes, throughout the day, even throughout the day when because of the multiple part-time employees that are there, staff, plus visitors that come throughout the day. The 127 that we have on site just is not working for the school district in a manner that could be improved.
was any of this anticipated when the new building was added?
We had done a traffic impact study and all those things, and I'll let Steve Cordy with Kleinger speak to more of that, but no, we would have done that, added the additional parking on site had we had known that at the time. It's traffic impact studies, just like everything else. With the new schools, there's growth rates, there's more, and there's sometimes more people dropping off their children in the morning, so.
What is the proximity between the back edge of that new space and the tree line, which buffers the housing? How many feet?
Parking stalls roughly 9 by 18, so if you look at that line right there, I would say about 36 feet, somewhere in that range, 36, 40. The buffer.
Did you state your name and address?
The buffer is what, honeysuckle and just roughage?
Tree.
Well, first.
My name is Steve Cordy, Korte, with the Kleinger's Group Civil Engineers, 6219 Center Park Drive, Westchester, Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Cordy.
45069.
You may proceed.
Thank you. So the property line, it's large, some larger deciduous trees, and there is some brush at the bottom from what I recall. But the dash line is a 50-foot setback, which is required by zoning code, the 50-foot setback in the parking lot. So it's labeled 50-foot zoning setback on that drawing right there. So we are roughly 30. It varies in distance, or the setback from that setback line. It's probably 30 or so feet, 30 to 35 feet.
So 80, 85.
Yeah, so total of maybe 80 to 85 feet from the property line.
And your light plan indicates there's no light spilling into the back end of that residential?
Correct. That's a goal of all of our projects,
Okay.
being a good neighbor.
And this seems to be the better location other than directly behind the building?
Behind
I mean,
the middle school.
I'm not sure, is the area between the new building and where Pleasant Run Elementary used to be is a large field.
It's a drop off.
Significant drop-off.
There's about a 30-foot drop there.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, so we had to construct a very large fill to build the parking lot to the east of the elementary school, as is, and really the only practical location from a topographic standpoint is due south of the elementary school, and it's pretty close to the building from the south entrance. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to skip to the other side. Mr. Bartold, do you have any questions?
Well, more for staff, actually. So it sounds like landscaping is met and site lighting is met, and the islands, they've met the requirements for islands.
That's correct. It meets all the zoning except for the exceeding the maximum number of parking spaces.
And I don't know if it was on the drawings, but I'm assuming there are storm or catch basins. Could you explain the stormwater runoff?
Yes, I was hoping somebody would ask that. So.
Beat me to the punch.
Yes, it's not shown on this. I don't believe. I do have full-size drawings here if you're interested. But yes, we have a few catch basins on the northern side of the proposed parking lot. There's an existing ditch which runs to the south. It's the reason for the fence, because we didn't want kids jumping into the ditch to chase basketballs and whatnot. So the fence is there for a good reason. So there is an existing ditch there that we will discharge the stormwater into, and downstream to the east towards the old Pleasant Run Elementary is a detention basin. We actually already have approval from Hamilton County Public Works for the stormwater management system. So.
All right, that was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartold. Mr. Schultz, do you have any questions?
I think they've answered my questions.
Mr. Roberto, do you have any
Of course, you
questions?
stole my thunder, because I was going to ask about drainage too, because I didn't see anything. And I did see the big, huge ditch there, so I was wondering how you guys were going to handle it. So I'm assuming there's going to be some tunnels or something that you're going to go drive across for that driveway that you're going to.
Yes, culverts.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I have no further questions.
I have no questions. And so if nobody, any of the members don't have any questions, I have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as with the staff recommendations.
Second.
Roll call, please.
So it's approval of conditional use.
Yeah, there'd be approval of a conditional use with a variance. Mr. Reinger,
Aye.
Mr. Roberto,
Aye.
Mr. Shep,
Aye.
Mr. Bartold,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Hi. Your variance has been granted. Thank you. Moving on, the agenda, we have no unfinished business today. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from August 28th, 2019?
Yes.
And if so, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I have a correction.
Oh,
On page 4, is it? 1, 2. Towards the bottom, third last paragraph, it says a motion was made by Mr. Hill and seconded by Mr. Hill for the approval of blah, blah, blah. So is that not correct? Or,
Would not be correct.
Yeah, most likely it's someone else.
I don't know if we have
can
two
fix
Mr.
that.
Hills
Yeah.
here. So I don't know if that, we can still approve these, or?
Up to you.
yeah, it's up to.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written with the amendment to the motion or second, whichever was
On
to be
page
corrected.
4.
On page 4. And one of the things I would ask that we also add a page number to the bottom of these so that we can identify them easier. So the motion's been made.
Anybody seconding the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. May I roll call?
Let's see, Mr. Bartold had the motion.
No, I did.
Oh, Ms.
I need a clarification.
Mr. Bartold,
Yes.
Mr. Roberto,
Yes.
Mr. Shep,
Aye.
Mr. Reinger,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson.
Aye. Next meeting is October 23rd, 2019. Sounds like we'll have 2 cases. Is that correct? Just one? Not including?
Well.
Potentially
plus-
Ah, potentially 2. I see we have no administrative matters. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, or anything before making a motion? No, so I can make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Oh, I can make that motion?
Sure, you just did.
Great.
Seconded.
Roll call?
Mr. Bertold,
Yes.
Mr. Reinger,
Aye.
Mr. Roberto,
Aye.
Mr. Shep,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson.
Aye.
Nay, just